and welcome to Mike's On with SNP, a new monthly broadcast where we, SNP, talk to members of our Smart Nice People community around professional development, skills, topics around leadership communications. For those who are new to SNP, everyone is new to Mike's On, even SNP. For those new to SNP, SNP is a leadership communications company, and most gratefully get to work with some of the coolest companies, coolest people around leadership communications. And part of that is leveling up, upskilling. So today we're joined with two of our founder partners, Serena Keith and Doug Wormhout, and I am joined by Joe Mullen, a fellow leader within SNP. So we're talking today about one-on-one coaching and how one-on-one coaching is important and critical in skill development or leveling up. And Serena, I'm going to start with you as we kind of introduce our panel. Serena, you certainly have both a background and a platform that supports that. Serena, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi, I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. Thank you. And Doug, also a co-founder, I'll ask you, give us a couple of words about Me360.
So Me360 is an on-demand skill platform. So we do one-on-one skill training. I am the co-founder along with Serena. I'm the CTO. And we're just really excited to be here today.
The perfect founder partners to have this conversation and talk about upskilling through coaching. And Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jessica. Very glad to be here.
We're going to dive right in. And Serena, I'm going to start with you because you have said that the key to upskilling, to leveling up, is really self-awareness. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. I think, well, for starters, it's really hard to improve a skill, if you don't know what you're doing wrong. So it's really important to glean self-awareness. Or having someone else give you feedback who is better than you at that skill to help you figure out where you are today, to help you figure out where you're trying to go. Also, from a motivation standpoint, it's really hard to stay motivated to develop skills, particularly complex skills, if you don't really have a grasp on where your shortcomings are.
You kind of don't know what you don't know.
True.
Doug, what would you add around self-awareness and one-on-one coaching?
I would say, Serena has this great line. She said, you can't coach basketball over the phone. And I think it's a really great way of sort of like illuminating this idea that if you're going to be successful in skill development, it requires observation. And yes, you can do some forms of self-observation, but having an external person to help you with that and then give you the courage to apply that in your life. Those are the two things that we think are requisite for real behavior change.
So I'm going to ask you, talk a little bit about, you have built a platform, you have built a company off of the ability to see yourself, self-observation. Can you share a little bit more about how that works?
Sure.
I'll start with you, Serena.
Sure, yeah. So at Me360, we focus on the really most complex and most important skills that allow people to work successfully together. So skills around leadership, management, and communication. And through our platform, thanks primarily to Doug, what people can do is not only work one-on-one with an excellent coach to focus on honing that specific skill, but also through the meetings version of the platform, they're able to click the record button, practice a skill. They can practice anything from active listening to being direct and instructive to being clear and concise, and then having that played right back to them in the moment so they can debrief that with their trainer.
I was
going to say, go ahead, Doug.
No, I was just going to say, it's basically what we've added to this is like, it's game tape. It's really a game tape. There's like this the ability to do instant replay, and like one of the more fun things for me has been the when we watch in the beginning development stages, when we would watch people use it and watch the level of sort of like they're sort of like, I don't want to be too strong. It's like almost dumbfounded when they see themselves and the amount of information they just learned about themselves by seeing themselves in that moment. and this common reaction of like, I would have not known this about myself had I not seen it played back to me. And I think, between, like Serena said, between the value of a trainer, of a really great trainer, paired with this technology platform that allows for both synchronous and asynchronous observation of yourself, we've gotten some really great results so far.
Well, there's two sports analogies. One, you can't learn, that we've heard. One, you can't learn basketball online or here, and then playing the game tape back. And so I'm wondering, and Doug, I'm going to start with you. You've got this platform. We have this platform. What it is facilitating is that self-observation. But why one-on-one versus a large group or a training, if you will? What's the magic in one-on-one?
Well, I would say a couple of things. I think every style of training has its place. For us, we think that, if you're going to facilitate behavior change, there has to be observation. We also believe that individuals have different skill deficits. If I look across an organization, across an employer, different people have different deficits of skills. Additionally, inside of those individual deficits, there are also individualized learning styles and environments, different ways to absorb feedback. And so we feel really strongly that having this like one-on-one approach, allows us to address Doug needs skill A, Serena needs skill B, but it also allows the trainers on our platform to adapt to the way that skill is trained to that specific individual. And rolling those two things together gives this like atomicity of value to the platform.
So what that one-on-one allows you to do is the flexibility to take a core and make it really applicable to that person in front of you.
Yeah.
Can I ask both of you, as founders, what was the impetus? What has one-on-one coaching, what has the impact been of one-on-one coaching on your own careers? And Serena, maybe I'll start with you. Can you give us your own experience with one-on-one coaching?
Sure. Part of the reason that I was inspired to start Me360 in the first place was actually that I didn't feel that I was getting everything I needed from traditional offerings of one-on-one coaching. I always found that I was concerned about my ability to relay issues that I was having at work to the person who was listening and having a conversation with me, for them to then give me feedback and then to be able to have me reapply that accurately. And so watching the workforce begin to move online and the ability for us to have so much more of our work interactions in Zoom meetings and things that actually could be recordable and shareable with somebody felt like it would be a much more accurate take at helping me learn the things that I was doing wrong, and particularly being able to bring that to somebody who was of the coaching style where they're unafraid to tell me, hey, look at this. This is something that you probably want to improve in order to get where you're trying to go. Yeah.
I'm wondering if does a specific example, do you remember a time when you got that kind of one-on-one coaching feedback and you'll never forget some of those nuggets that have made that impact for you?
Yeah, actually, prior to starting Me360, the best experience I ever had with a coach was somebody who shadowed me in meetings. And for a long time, I remember thinking that my issue was that I was too assertive. And actually, their diagnosis after a particular meeting was that I probably wasn't assertive enough.
Interesting. Self-perception, audience perception, very different.
Very different.
Doug, how about yourself? Your experience, the impact for coaching in your career?
Yeah. Well, I would say I kind of wanted to touch on something also that
Please.
We were just talking about just a second ago, and that was like, we were talking about the impetus. And, I've always had this intuition that there's this term in industry, soft skills, for what we do, where you call them leadership skills or interpersonal skills, that those were the most predictive skills of performance in the workplace, and really performance at most things. The company that Serena and I worked on together, Lovely, we put that into action there. And after we went through an acquisition, there was a time when we were kind of forced into not forced, but we became part of a much larger organization. And that organization was much more mechanistic in the way that it delivered training, and it favored hard skills. And it really just reinforced to me the value of them. And, years later, when Serena showed to me what she was working on, I was just like, this is perfect. Not only can we bring a bunch of technology to the table, but I have a core belief that this is actually how you become the most valuable you can be in a workplace. And it's been, I don't know, it's been really great. In terms of individual examples in my life, I don't know. I would say none come to mind, but the shape of them does. I would say reflection of another person whom I trust, who is learned, is how I learn most of the nuggets I've learned about myself that have turned out to be valuable. Has been something a friend or a trainer or a mentor has said to me one-on-one. And it's always been a reflective thing that I had a blind spot about, that they unlocked for me in that moment. And yeah, it might have taken weeks or months for that to fully unravel and become part of my life. But when I look back, yeah, each change is precipitated by that. Each big change in my life was precipitated by a moment like that.
And I love, Doug, what you said was friend, trainer, mentor. I mean, all of these individuals, there's so many different people who could play the role of a coach in our life. It's being open to that. And certainly the platform to support that, the people could be very influential from across our various communities.
Yeah, we've definitely we definitely have the philosophy that that there is in this intrinsic non-reproducible value in a learned trainer, and so the platform doesn't aim to have computers tell you what you're doing wrong. The platform aims to supercharge the ability of a trainer to deliver that to as many people as possible at scale.
The computers work for the humans, not the other way around.
Yes, 100%.
Excellent. Joe, we're going to talk about kind of how the pandemic has shifted kind of how we all work. It's kind of shifted the game for us. But Joe, I want to stay on the coaching aspect and the impact of one-on-one coaching, and know that part of the many hats that you wear at SNP has been to coach leaders and executives. I'm wondering if you can share a bit of your perspective on just what coaching is and the impact that it can bring.
Sure. I think I love what Serena and Doug were saying is really highlighting the disconnect that we all have between self-perception and audience perception. And at least the type of coaching we but we focus on is understanding audience's perception is truth, right? And so to be able to see how you're coming across is really important. And the type of coaching we focus on is to just provide practical frameworks or skills or approaches so how you come across is well received or better received than what you were doing prior to coaching. So it's meant to be practical, it's meant to be a skill building, and it's meant to be acted on. Right? We always say we're kind of people's guilty conscience, because if you come back to a one-on-one and you didn't actually execute on something, you're only fooling yourself, right? You're only saying, well, I want to get better, but are you willing to try, right? And that's why practice is so important. If you're learning a sport, if you're learning an instrument, or if you're learning how to be a better communicator, practice is so important. So it's meant to be highly practical.
So it's not just having the conversation; it's actually putting it into practice after the conversation.
That's right.
It makes it happen. Joe, I'm wondering, how would you describe yourself as a coach? If we are all different, and I love there is learned instructor, learned trainer. How do you describe yourself as a coach?
Well, I'll tell you how I've been described as a coach. I've been described as a coach as a lovable asshole. Meaning, if you've worked with me, you know I love you and I care for you, but I'm not going to let you off the hook. So that's how I've been described.
Joe, that's my experience of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We can see the business cards being printed right now.
Yes, Joe Mullen, lovable asshole.
Lovable asshole at snpnet.com.
That's right.
Well, okay, so the last year and a half, and let's just say the pandemic has kind of changed the game. We're just going to go very deep in all kinds of athletic sports analogies or references, has changed the game as far as professional development. And Serena, you particularly have said it, it is time to look at things differently. So can you talk more about what you have seen and what does that even mean? It's changed the game.
I mean, I think so. The pandemic obviously shifted a huge percentage of the workforce online into a virtual office overnight for what a lot of people thought was temporary and is now proving to be more of a sustained change. And so I think when someone's office experience is not walking through the doors and seeing people and having lunch with them and chatting with them in the hallways, but it is opening and closing your laptop, it's really important to think about how we build relationships, for starters. How do we build rapport with the people that we work with if we never meet them in person, or we don't have those moments after meetings to clarify things that we wish we'd said and hadn't? And so I think one of the big ways in which the pandemic has changed the work environment is that we need to be especially attuned to how we communicate with each other, because every interaction through our laptop matters so much more because there aren't these outtakes that you got inside the four walls of an office. I would also say that it is harder in a two-dimensional work environment to remain engaged. Even if your work is fascinating and you love it, you lose something at a distance. For all the things that we gain, I think it's important to recognize that. And so what that means is giving people, in our perspective, giving people the skills to engage deeply, to communicate, and to manage, and to situationally lead has never been more important.
And Serena, you mentioned too the connection and the context that we've kind of lost. So I'm going to ask, I think our inclination maybe in March of 2020 was to get big groups together. There were the happy hours that were coming together. It was kind of bring large groups together to connect. And really what it sounds like is that people need more of a one-on-one relationship, even though we feel like we're always half of that. I'm always one, and I'm just going for one here. Can you talk a little bit more about maybe redefining, going back to smaller relationships, more intentional?
Sure. I guess I can answer that in two ways. The first thing that comes to mind is when it comes to one-on-one skill building as opposed to group-oriented skill building, I think that it is really important always to have somebody dedicated in your corner who can personalize concepts for you based on what you're doing in the meetings that they're able to see. I think when it comes to building relationships with teams, the nature of communication, we need to really strengthen the rapport we build through being clear on everything from how we delegate responsibility to follow up on work projects, to giving direct feedback, things that we might have been able to get away with prior that were looser when we worked in the office together.
Excellent. So the intentionality behind that we kind of took for granted that we could turn around and just chat with someone.
Yeah. And I think that the virtual work environment has provided so many benefits and is a net benefit overall. But I think it would be a mistake not to think very carefully about the things that we're losing, that we should be correcting for.
And Doug, to that point, we've lost so much of the nonverbal. Can you talk a bit more about how, let's call it virtual reality, 2D reality, helps support that?
Yeah. So in a previous startup, I founded a company that was a virtual reality startup that did collaboration, so spatial 3D collaboration over VR. Part of why we did that was because there was this large thesis around how much communication, how much nonverbal communication, somewhere between 40 to 60%, depending on who you ask, is lost through just audio, and then through video, some portion of that is still lost. All that to say really though, is it's just like Serena was saying, that same thesis applies here in the following sense. All of the communication you do have matters that much more. So not only are you speaking to people less often, but the type of interaction you're having has less throughput, less bandwidth, less information is being exchanged because of the camera. And I think in that world, yeah, I agree with Serena. Move to remote, net benefit, net plus for sure. But we have to be able to acknowledge the fact that some things are worse, and this is one of them. And being a better communicator and being more self-aware, more understanding of how you're perceived, wildly important in this environment. And I believed that these sorts of skills were most predictive of success in the workplace before COVID. Now it's, to me, there's no question.
So knowing that the key is communication skills, as we all kind of are distributed, the importance of communication skills, the intentionality behind them. Joe, as you have coached leaders over the last year and a half, what additional themes have you seen in your one-on-one coaching conversations that might have been different or might have stayed the same?
Well, I think it just builds on what Serena and Doug were saying. Connection is way down, right? Production is up, but connection is down. Building those relationships and being able to influence faster and get things done faster, that isn't happening. And when innovation and collaboration is down, that's difficult, right? So you have to be much more intentional in not only communicating what needs to be communicated, so people are keep informed with the right information, but you also have to be able to develop relationships. And this has just made it harder because it's harder to build a relationship remotely or virtually. So I think what's going to be great coming out of this is the hybrid approach, right? I don't know if necessarily one is better than the other right now, but knowing that we've been able to collaborate, to be productive wherever we're at in the world, to see us come together at times while also being able to work remotely, that's going to, I think the new hybrid approach, whatever that will eventually look like, is going to be the best of both worlds.
They're going to have to remember how to shake hands or be in person. I think it's a whole new skill set when that.
It reminds me of a training I had to do about 15 years ago, and they asked me to make sure people understood how to shake a hand with a strong handshake. Can you imagine going around the table?
Now, no.
Yes.
That's a no.
Exactly. So we don't need to get back to that. Learn how to shake a hand.
It's something we can practice. We can practice that at home and be ready when it goes back to hybrid.
My dad used to make me practice as a child. I remember those.
Oh, it's just terrible. Too many jokes.
That's one-on-one coaching right there.
Right. Yeah, that was one-on-one. Pops gave me some good one-on-one coaching about making eye contact and a firm handshake for sure.
That's your example of impactful one-on-one coaching, Doug. You have it right there. Yeah. Well, it is important. And Serena, I'm going to start with you on the investing in your people and one-on-one coaching being a way companies invest in large programs so that individuals within their company can each have a one-on-one coach. But it's an investment and it's particularly important to invest right now. Can you share a little bit more about why, particularly now, to invest in learning and development?
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, it may seem like an investment, but it is by far the most cost efficient way to get the most out of your employees. I mean, your employees are filled with potential, and if you don't give them the resources to tap into it, you are leaving a lot on the table. So I think that companies have long understood that investing in their employees is the best way to get the most out of them. I think also now more than ever, they've got one-click options to do that. And so there really shouldn't be as much that holds them back. I would also say that we talked about some of the frustrations that can be caused by remote work, which have to do with lack of that soft tissue that creates culture and the ability for people to work really well together. I mean, most people can be productive on their own remotely, but when it comes to working together, which is how most work gets done, it is more difficult. And so if employees get frustrated today, I mean, looking for a job is so easy. It is one tab away from the work that you're doing. And so I would strongly encourage employers who are not convinced, although I believe most are, that they should be taking a hard look at this. I would say the case for employees has always been really clear. I mean, every employee deserves the opportunity to develop themselves to the best of their potential. And upskilling, especially around these soft skills, is by far the best way to do it.
And as you said, if what we are hearing is the lack of connection, development can be helping facilitate that connection for your team members, for your employees.
Correct.
Also, Jessica, to add to what Serena was saying, I think employers, to her point, have always said we need to invest in our employees. But, you know, the two largest workforces that are younger than Gen X's demand it now. Before, it was kind of a nice to have, right, for us. But now the workforce is demanding because they're so used to being coached and having that instruction and that encouragement that cultures need to get behind that too. So there's more of a sense of urgency to attract and retain talent. You have to.
It's a non-negotiable for that talent.
Correct. 100%.
Doug, you have an example, I think, from a previous company that I believe is how you and Serena connected from Lovely. Can you share that experience?
Sorry, wait, which one?
Investing in people, how you hired people, and kind of that investment.
Oh yeah. We so you know, Lovely. We were very like I kind of touched on it earlier a little bit about post when we were acquired, but in the very beginning, yeah, we hired 60 people. I never read a single resume. We did it. We did the hiring based entirely on like who people were, not so much what they were, not so much what they could do. And I think I've always had, like I said before, I always had the intuition that was the right way to build a team, and that was the right way to build a team that would work together, that was cohesive, and like not to sound too woo-woo about it, but that like loved being around each other and the value of that. And every sort of intuition, maybe not every, but almost every intuition I had about that proved to be true in that place. And so coming out of Lovely, I believe in the value of self-realization in the work, even in the workplace, not in some flighty philosophical sense, even in the workplace as like the best way to or the best predictor of future performance, and we're in a position to try to enable that for people. I just couldn't be more excited about it.
Serena, what would you add?
I would add that I think one of the reasons why I love waking up every morning to do the work that we do and to build the company that we are building, and we're so lucky to be able to partner with SNP, is that it gives us an opportunity to help create the most high impact work environment that every employee deserves. When people come to work and they realize that their employers are investing in their skill development because they have an easier way to be able to do that and scale that across the organization, you have much happier, healthier employees who are able to really learn and grow and take on harder and harder projects over time. That's a real thrill to be able to do.
And the investment, not just in big groups, but it's significantly or pointedly the investment in one-on-one coaching, that individual attention for self-awareness, actualization.
I mean, I think
can I example the skills that, Doug and Serena are talking about, and that's why we partner so well. These foundational skills to a career, right, are, Warren Buffett tells every graduating student, doesn't matter what their work they're going into, learn to become an exceptional public speaker. It'll have the biggest impact in your career. Learn how to facilitate discussion. Collective intelligence and collaboration is powerful. So learn how to facilitate meetings, right? Tailor content to your audience. Have difficult conversations. This ability to have a difficult conversation where people feel good out of it. They're motivated and not demotivated. So these are like foundational skills that are so important in the workforce that we're talking about.
And Joe, we say foundational, but it's not just early career. You said practice. This is throughout your career. Do I have that right?
100%. You have that right.
And I think too, if I could add too, part of what we're doing too is trying to give, because the equation that we've been talking about is what's best for the learner, what's best for the employee, and I don't disagree with anything that anyone has said, but I think we also, or when Serena and I were talking about this early on, we were also talking a lot about like we have to not forget that the employer is part of this equation as well. And they're the ones who, I mean, to be frank, they're the ones who pay the bills. And so is there a way that we can organize training that also allows the employer to get something they're not currently getting, or at least gives them another option of a thing they might want? And when I talked about atomicity of value earlier, this idea that we have individual skills for individual people that can then be delivered in individualized ways, it allows a business to, if they are so inclined, to understand that the money I spent, I didn't spend it for a single training for everyone. That might be perfectly applicable in some situations, but there are going to be situations in which that feels less efficient. And so giving them the option to, as the employer is the one cutting the check, to say, I know which individuals received which skills, and I understand that they were done individually, and thusly my spend is as efficient as possible. And I think impact, because I think Serena touched on this a second ago. I do think employers recognize that these things are valuable. I think there are some, not all, but there are some who need to be convinced of that maybe there are ways they hadn't previously understood of delivering them in a way that's cost efficient. And I think we're in a position to sort of like add to the chorus of ways that are cost efficient.
Doug, you're kind of changing the ROI, where a training, it's did they attend? That's kind of one of the metrics. This is really ROI on behavior change.
Yeah, and it's a thing we think about a lot. There is a world of workshop-based trainings, from the terrible ones on one side that is like sexual harassment training, to the really great ones like that SNP does. And there's a big spectrum. But if you're a business, it's easy for a business who maybe doesn't have access to or doesn't understand that there are firms doing great workshop trainings. They might have only ever experienced something like these sort of pre-packaged trainings that treats every single person the same, and follows some sort of dogma that people leave with some sort of booklet, and that's the end of it. Those types of people are very receptive to this message of we can allow you to pick and choose who gets what training and on what schedule. Also, you might have a situation like Serena and I, in the sense that like Serena only needs one training, but Doug needs like 15 trainings. So you can send Serena to one, and address this much larger skill deficit in Doug, instead of trying to treat everyone the same. And I think that value offering is also well received.
Doug, you inherently answered a question that we just got into chat, is how do you make sure that if you have varying skills, how do you make sure that leaders on your team kind of get to the same level with their own varying skills? And it's through that tailoring and through that coaching.
Yeah, it's we're in a position to offer that, to offer both the ability to surface that through your organization, meaning through your structure of managers and administrators, but also surface that through interview, and there's a number of techniques to surface those needs, and then be able to address them individually. And I think, for me, part of why when Serena first started talking to me about what she was doing, why I got so excited about it was like the mission of skill delivery generally, regardless of how it's done, is really valuable to me. But this way of doing it, I had never considered before, and the way that it is so well aligned to deliver value to everyone at the table, to the learner, to the trainer, to the employer. It keeps me very excited.
The democratization of learning, almost.
Right. Yeah.
And Joe, if you've been watching, for those who have been watching either live or watching the recording, and you are bought in, one-on-one coaching is something that you want, or maybe you've done it in the past and you want to pick it up again. We have a question in chat around, how do you even start to find a one-on-one coach? What does that even look like? If bought into the process, how do you find one, Joe?
How do you find the right coach for yourself? Yeah. I always say, know thyself. Know how you like to learn. Know the personalities that work well for you. Know the personalities that don't. and be picky, be selfish. We always tell folks, look, the relationship, the chemistry has to be there. And if you don't like the coach, or it's just not working out, you're not dancing well with your coach, that's okay. None of us take that personally, because our ego is not tied to being a good coach. Our ego is tied to doing what's right for you. So just let us know and we'll get you another person. You know, ask for bios, ask for an orientation call. But no, first start with yourself. Who have you meshed well with? Who do you like to listen to? What's their personality like? Background. So start with yourself and then be very picky.
I love that we say the same, and we do, and I'll underscore say the same to our coaches. There's no ego there. So very often a coach will help you find the best next coach for you.
That's right.
If you could leave us with, we're talking about one-on-one coaching in leveling up skill development. If those who are watching this broadcast can walk away with one thing to either remember or to do, what would you suggest that one thing be? And Serena, I'm going to start with you. One thing that you can remember or think to do around one-on-one coaching or upskilling.
I think you record your next meeting and watch yourself.
Self-actualization, self-realization. That's just the way to do it. Nice. Thank you,
It's
Serena.
so simple, and people just don't do it.
Simple, painful, effective. That's bad marketing, but simple, painful, effective. Doug, how about yourself? What would you say?
I mean, the cheeky answer, right, is create a Me360 account for your business. But the more thoughtful answer, I would say that's like self-realization and self-discovery is not a process. You know, what we call skill building, right? It's not a process of acquisition. It's not really even a process of growth. It's a process of discovery, of self-discovery, and the courage to realize that discovery. And I say that to say, if there's anything that you could take away from this, understand that like you don't have to acquire new things. You already have everything you need. If this is just a process of discovery and kind of courage to realize that discovery.
That process of discovery. I love it. Joe, how about yourself? One thing to take away.
I mean, I always say what Doug just said. You have everything you need to be an exceptional communicator and leader. You just have to choose to do it. Right? Skills are a choice. Executing an approach is a choice. So just make the choice to get better and to start getting better, understand where you are today and where you want to be. Right? So that's that self-awareness piece.
And record your next meeting. That's one way to start to get
or
there.
It's good. That was really good.
Set up a Me360 account.
Or set up a Me360 account. Absolutely.
I mean, if the CTO can say it, can I?
Yeah,
I don't even work for the company. Aren't I more objective?
I think everyone should say it all the time, everywhere you go, just in polite conversation.
I'm sensing a T-shirt coming on.
Yeah.
Oh, the lovable asshole. At it again. Joe, Serena, Doug, thank you so much for joining us. Serena and Doug, for sharing your story and also a bit about the platform of how we can support through Me360 can support what is such a critical way, an important way to be able to develop professionally, level up, upskill, however you want to say it. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you. This is fun.
Thanks so much.
Awesome.
This has been great.
Take care.
And to everyone, sign up for our newsletter for the next Mike's On with SNP, and we hope to see you next month.